The defense team finished up their close, and at the very end, attorney Marc Agnifilo asked the jury to acquit Sean Diddy Combs of all of the charges and to send him home to his family. And with that, you know, there are listening rooms because the main courtroom is packed. That's where I was this morning. And then there are these overflow rooms. There are multiple overflow rooms packed full of people from the public, from the media, so many people converging on New York City because of this trial. And in one of the rooms, I can confirm to you that when Marc Agnifilo finished, the room erupted in cheers. Everyone in the room started cheering loudly, clapping. When his closing argument was finished. Marc Agnifilo giving that close on behalf of Diddy's legal team. Numerous lawyers taking part in this process for him. And from what we understand, Diddy was quite pleased with that closing argument. Now we're in the government's rebuttal. So that is currently taking place in the courthouse behind me. Diddy's trial happening at the very top floor of this building. We're in the Southern District of New York, and they actually have two federal courthouses, Michael and Ashley. This is one of them, the larger one. It is beautiful inside, and it is very hard to get a seat in that courtroom. But I will tell you, when I was in there this morning, Diddy looked to be in very good spirits. I saw him looking back at his children right before court started, giving them a big smile. And then during the break, when everybody was in the morning recess, people were milling about the courtroom and talking. The judge was off the bench, and I saw one of his twin daughters hand a piece of paper to attorney Tenny Garagos, Mark Garagos' daughter, who's one of the attorneys on the Diddy team. And she then handed that paper to Diddy, and he read whatever was on it, and then he turned back around, looked at his daughter, smiled really big, and did a little bit of a fist pump, like to indicate, yeah, whatever it was, he seemed to be very happy about it. His mom looked to be in good spirits. I saw her leaving the courtroom during the break. I said hello to her. She said hello back. They all seem to be really leaning on each other, relying on each other for support, as his freedom, Michael and Ashley, is on the line. If he's convicted of that sex trafficking charge, it could be 15 years mandatory minimum. And there are two of them, one pertaining to Cassie, as you know, and one pertaining to Jane. And if he's convicted of the racketeering, could potentially be life.
Julie, I got to say, tell me if I'm wrong. I want to get your opinion on this. It seems to me the overriding theme of this closing argument by the defense was essentially that this was an overreach by the prosecution, that this was about the government going into somebody's bedroom, someone like Sean Diddy Combs, and although it's admittedly a bit of a bizarre sex life, it is his personal life. It didn't extend beyond that. Would you say that's a fair sort of assessment of the way they sort of characterized this approach to the prosecution?
Yes, Michael, you're exactly right. And I have to tell you both, Marc Agnifilo did a brilliant job connecting with the jury on that point. He is very engaging. His close was much different than the government's. The government, I have to say, while they were very thorough, very polished, very matter of fact, it was a little stiff. He talks to the jury just like he would be talking to someone at the breakfast table, maybe someone in his family. He cracks little jokes, and one of them actually pertained to this point you just raised, Michael. So he was saying how the federal government essentially invaded Sean Combs' private life and turned his bedroom life into a crime scene. And he joked, and I have to tell you, I saw 3 jurors crack up when he said, thank goodness the federal government got all of that Astroglide off the streets. They went in and they seized all those bottles of Astroglide and baby oil. Thank goodness we are safe from all of that personal lubricant. And 3 jurors, I saw all 3 of them, 2 women, younger black women, and then one, I would say, middle-aged white man. All 3 of them cracked up and had big smiles on their face with that joke. And that was just one of the examples where we saw Marc Agnifilo really connecting with them and making this seem kind of ridiculous that the federal government would try to criminalize these desires to have sex involving multiple partners at hotels, using baby oil or whatever else they want to use. He described it as Diddy being not the only one making homemade porn, so to speak, that this was just his lifestyle. It was a valid lifestyle, Michael and Ashley, is what the defense team argued very strongly this morning.
And if you would, Julie, remind us, too, how he balanced that with admitting some of the things that Diddy has done that aren't okay, by using the video, for instance, and the domestic violence piece.
Sure, Judge. Thank you for that. Yes, he acknowledged that Diddy committed terrible acts of domestic violence. And he went so far as to say if he were charged with those crimes, that he would be pleading guilty to them because he did them. And he said from the start of this trial, we've owned that. He did something that surprised me. I have to say, I thought he may kind of stay away from this hotel beating video, maybe just acknowledge it. He actually showed portions of it, Ashley and Michael, but not this portion right here that we're looking at. What he showed everyone was a cell phone in Cassie's hand when she initially left that hotel room. And you have to look really closely. I want you to pay attention to that mirror on the wall. It's going to be coming up on her right, our left, and you'll see the reflection of it. See it there? It looks like it has a white case. Hard to see. And look at Diddy's hands. Nothing in his hands as he goes to Cassie. So Marc Agnifilo used this to say, hey, this was terrible, this was illegal, this was wrong and inexcusable. But it was not about bringing her back to the room to traffic her. Look at his hand now. He's got the phone. He said this was about retrieving that cell phone that she took when she shouldn't have. That's what he said. He said the phone he believes belonged to Diddy, and he believes that was the reason he got so enraged and went after her, and we saw that terrible attack. So that was quite an illuminating portion of the argument, I would say, because we've looked at that video, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of times, and with her sweatshirt sleeve, unless you're looking at that mirror, it's really hard to see what she had in her hand or even to notice how he retrieved something. So perhaps that argument will be effective, perhaps not, in terms of whether the jury considers it sex trafficking.
Julie, one final thing I wanted to ask. It kind of jumped out at me during the closing argument by the defense, and that was a point where Marc Agnifilo said basically the winner in all this, because she got the $20 million, he talks about it, the real winner of all this is Cassie Ventura. And I kind of took a quick back, I was taken aback by that because of all that went on, look, you can get money. We do know some horrible things did in fact happen to her. He even copped to it, said, look, we admit to the domestic violence and the violence in the relationship, yet he called her the one winner. I wonder if you had any notice as how did the jurors react to that? I thought that might have been a misstep.
Michael, I'm so glad you brought that up. That was quite a moment, and I've got a little more for you both. Wait for this. So when he brought that up, he started with saying that this was not a quest for justice for Cassie, that this was a quest about money. And we all know about the $30 million lawsuit that she filed, which was the catalyst for this case. And Agnifilo argued that had it not been for that lawsuit, then we wouldn't have this federal case here and now. And when he noted that Cassie is the winner in all this, he said that Diddy is the loser because he's the one who wound up in jail. And Ashley and Michael, I was a little bit stunned at that because, as you both know, the government cannot mention that he's incarcerated. The judge cannot mention that. We usually don't see defense attorneys mentioning that, but here he did. He took a moment, he gestured toward his client, and he said to the jury, do you see that handsome man sitting behind Mr. Combs? That man is a U.S. Marshal. And he said that man is one of the agents who's tasked with taking him to and from his jail cell every day. When Cassie won, and she's somewhere around the world right now with $30 million, Sean Combs is locked up behind bars. And so that was quite a moment for two reasons. The jury learned that Diddy's incarcerated. They had no idea. Now he sits in the courtroom every day in his sweaters, looking very nice. They never see him brought in or handcuffed. And then two, as you both know, we never heard what the settlement amount was. Seems to me that Marc Agnifilo might have let the cat out of the bag because we know she asked for $30 million, but it was settled for an undisclosed amount. But today he said that she is somewhere around the world $30 million richer.